Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Lloyd.
Hey there, good morning.
Morning, Tracy.
Should we give folk a few more minutes before we start to see whether or not anyone else joins us?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. Excuse me. See. So we do have a quorum, correct? Is it
Yes,
Ruby?
that's correct.
Okay, is it Ruby or Melissa from the city who's helping me to monitor this chat? Lord, who else is on from community development?
It sounded like Melissa, but I want to confirm that you're currently muted. There's Melissa.
I'm sorry about that. I forgot to change my name. Yes, it's me, Melissa.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks. Good morning, Melissa. So we do have a quorum. We have two meeting minutes that we need to vote on. It is from, is it May and April's minutes, Lloyd, or does it go back further?
The ones that were sent in the announcement from Jonathan. There were several and I didn't check which ones. Melissa, do you recall? We can go back to.
Sorry, yes. I know we have the last 2 months of minutes. He also had previously sent, sorry, so we have May, we have April, and then he also sent March because we hadn't approved our March minutes.
Okay,
So 3 months.
okay.
It looks like December's minutes are also attached. Do those also need to be approved, Melissa?
Yes, so we had done January, February, but we did not approve December. So he also sent those a while ago.
Okay, so it looks as if December of 2022, March of 2023, April and May of 2023, all those minutes need to be approved by this subcommittee. Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the ones that Jonathan sent via email, and were there any corrections or edits that need to be made before we move forward with a vote?
The December minutes, my name is spelled with an E at the end. There's no E at the end. Correct that.
Okay, Shanta, thank you for letting me know that. And Shanta, you're with Housing for New Hope, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Given that edit with her name, Lloyd, can we move forward and make that edit afterwards, or do we need to make the edit before those minutes can be approved?
It can be noted in today's minutes that that correction is being made. And that's sufficient.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Can we bundle them and have a motion to approve December 22, March, April, and May of 2023 minutes, or do we need to individually make a motion to approve each of those minutes for each meeting that we needed? I'd like to think we can bundle those. I'm hoping we can bundle.
We can bundle them if somebody makes a motion to approve them as a group with the corrections noted.
I'll move that we approve the bundled minutes for December 8th, 2022, March 9th, 2023, April 13th, 2023, and May 11th, 2023, with the corrections as described.
Thank you, Janine. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shanta. Okay. All right, just making a note to myself. All right, so our agenda, and forgive me, I'm at work today, so I've got 3 screens and my camera sometimes is a little off with the number of things I have up. So,
Excuse me, Tracy, we still need a vote on that motion.
oh, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there.
Yeah.
So we have the motions. Please put your vote in the chat. Thank you. That reminder.
Thank you.
So we can have that recorded. Thank you. Okay. All right, looks as if we have all the votes that are in. Okay. Let's see. trying to pull up the agenda. Okay, so we have the public comment period. Do we have anyone who is on, who's joined our meeting, would participate in any of that? And I'm sorry, I kind of went backwards. We did approve the minutes, and then I forgot to note the public comment period. Yes, Lord, I see your hand.
Thank you. Let me take the public comment period to introduce Jeffrey Rawlings to the committee. I believe this is the first meeting of performance management that Jeffrey has attended. Invite him to introduce himself, and then perhaps we could take a word to allow the, especially the committee members and the people on the call to introduce themselves as well. Jeff started with the Community Development Department a few weeks ago.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, everyone. Today is actually my 1 month.
Great.
June, I started on May 8th. So I am the new coordinated entry admin and senior analyst with the department. I'll be reviewing a couple of grants as well as working with coordinated entry. I come to Durham from the balance of state, Region 7. I was with a nonprofit, and I was a coordinated entry lead for that as well as the HMIS administrator, as well as the supervisor for the Rapid Housing Program and supervisor for the Safe at Home and D1 Family Funds Program. So I kind of juggled a lot of things. I've spoken on the national level, National Alliance to End Homelessness, in regard to coordinated entry, but more so for landlord relations. So my passion has been landlord retention, landlord recruitment, and landlord development. So I want to bring those things to our organization here. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. Very excited to be here. I've kind of had some dealings with Durham as far as transporting people from our area up here to get services, because this system here operates better than the one that I came from. So I am excited to be a part of something that is working and working well. And I hope to bring the expertise that I have from the rural areas and from the travels to be able to supplement and hopefully be able to be a benefit to Durham as well.
Okay. Well, great. Welcome, Jeffrey. I think you did attend our last meeting. I know at HSAC, you were also introduced. And so it's been a month. So hopefully you're still running.
Still running.
With your track shoes on. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, and please feel free to join in the discussion. So we've had our welcome, call to order, public comment period. We don't have anyone for the public comment period. We've approved our minutes. And so then next item on our agenda is to finalize the scorecards for the 2023 ESG Emergency Solutions Grant competition. And it was noted that we do need to vote on this. So I'm going to turn it over to Lloyd to present this information and have any comments or discussion regarding this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully pull up the correct scoring document. Not finding it here. Let me go back and when I had opened it. There, so I can try again. Here we go. Madam Chair, would you confirm you can see my screen? All right.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So the state, by way of introduction, the state opened the competition for this year's Emergency Solutions Grants through the state of North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, opened the competition on June 6th. We have until August 21st to submit our regional application and associated project applications for these funds. The state application we use is provided to us by the state, and they use a smart sheet secure website to accept project applications, as well as to accept the regional application that goes with it. Durham is eligible to apply for approximately $171,000 in this year's competition. Upon the recommendation of the department, the HSAC at its May meeting, I believe, agreed to divide the funds equally between emergency services and housing stabilization. You may recall that ESG rules from HUD require that a minimum of 40% of the allocation is used for housing stabilization. In recent years, Durham had complied with that by allowing 40% to be used for housing stabilization, especially rapid rehousing, and using the rest for emergency services. This year, we are, the HSAC agreed to use half of it for housing stabilization, and especially targeting the housing stabilization funds to assist unsheltered families with rapid rehousing assistance. So not for homeless prevention, since they would already be homeless, but that's coming out of the recognition that Durham, especially since the COVID pandemic hit, has been challenged with a significant number, dozen or so homeless families or more in unsheltered homelessness at any one time. So we're hoping that we can provide more support for that. The state also is combining they have separate applications for new project applications, new projects being organizations that are not currently receiving state ESG funds. Those projects currently receiving funds have a somewhat briefer application, and then new organizations and new projects have a slightly longer new project application. So the scorecard that we have revised from previous years combines that those two applications, and there are references in the scorecard to the specific sections. We also revised the tool this year to revise the scoring so that street outreach, emergency shelter, homeless prevention, or rapid rehousing projects would all have a maximum score possible of 140 points. There are specific sections for all of the projects. Would have sections 1 through 4 are each 55 points. Section 5, which is the specific activity section, would have 85 points possible, plus a particular bonus section, and we'll review those. But the scorecard overall is very similar to what we've used in previous years, relying heavily on information that the state asks applicants to include in their application. So I believe this has been sent out previously. Do want to highlight that a lot of the specific activity section is based on existing performance. We are expecting that even new projects would have some previous performance, asking, and we're reviewing project performance for the period January 1, 2022 through May 31st of this year, so just a week or so ago. Currently, we have 3 organizations currently receiving funds that would be able to complete a renewal project application. That those are Families Moving Forward, receiving funds for emergency shelter operations and services. Open Table Ministry is currently implementing some street outreach activities using state ESG funds, and Housing for New Hope is also, I believe, receiving funds for some street outreach activities as well as rapid rehousing activity. We have not been receiving applications for HMIS implementation, but that is an eligible use of state ESG funds. We are having a bonus funds in the bonus section, specifically inviting organizations to complete a self-evaluation for an additional 5 points. And then we are proposing that we add a substantial bonus of 35 points to organizations that submit an application that commits to serving the priority population of unsheltered families served by a street outreach project or a rapid rehousing project. So that's an introduction to the scorecard, and we'll invite any questions or discussion about the scorecard itself before the committee hopefully would approve it. Madam Chair, back to you.
I'm trying to unmute myself.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Lord, I know you said there are 3 organizations currently receiving funding for ESG funding, and so we're anticipating probably the same 3 organizations to submit an application for the next fiscal year for these grants.
Yes, we have distributed information. I could also mention, forgive me for not mentioning, the local deadline for the submission of applications has been set for July 11th. That would give us sufficient time with an evaluation committee, subcommittee of this committee to score those and then to complete a local competition. It's really up to our local organizations to hopefully apply for these funds. And we've distributed information to the full COC. I believe everybody on this call should have received those notices earlier this week. And I think we did have some competition for the funds last year, and anticipate some competition potentially this year as well. So
are we anticipated to receive the same level of funding, or has the funding anticipated amount of funding going to shift, give or take cost of living and then just the cost of doing business in terms of housing?
That's a great question. The funding this year from the state is actually slightly smaller than it was last year. I think $400 or $800 less than we had to distribute last year, but it's really comparable to what we had last year. So a very minor reduction in the amounts.
And could you remind me, how much did we receive last year?
Let me look that up real quick. Give me a moment and I'll look that up. Last year, we received a total of $172,255. This year, we are eligible to apply for $171,000. Let me look up the final, pulling up the final number. $171,875. So again, just a few $100 less.
Okay, all right, thank you for sharing that.
Good thing.
Okay, all right, so we did discuss this at our last meeting, and Jonathan did send this information out in preparation for this meeting. Are there any questions related to the scorecard rubrics or questions regarding information that Lloyd has shared with us regarding this? Because we will have to vote to move this forward to the HSAC committee.
I don't believe the scorecard needs to be approved by the HSAC itself. Can be
Okay.
approved by this committee.
Okay, all right.
As part of
when-
the process that the HSAC wants, the process would be that the evaluation committee that uses the scorecard in cooperation, collaboration with the department would make funding recommendations based on the scoring to this committee at a meeting or an email vote later in July. And then this committee would finalize its funding recommendations to the HSAC, and the HSAC would approve funding recommendations by August 9th to give us time to consider any appeals from local organizations before the August 21st state deadline.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So we simply need to finalize the scorecard for the ESG competition. And this is requiring a vote from the committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Before we do so, again, are there any questions or comments or things that we need to discuss before moving towards a vote? Do we need a motion before we're voting on this, Lloyd?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. So I'll entertain a motion first, and then we'll vote via the chat once we receive a motion in a second.
Hey, this is Alicia. I don't know how to formally say it, but I make a motion to put the items on the table to a vote.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Alicia.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Janine. We have a motion as well as a second to approve the ESG scorecard for 2023 ESG competition. If you would, please, in the chat, also vote. This computer, I tell you. Okay. All right. Seeing all the votes that are in the motion, we have finalized the scorecard and yes, okay. We have finalized the scorecard and it will be duly noted in our minutes, and this information will be shared with the HSAC, correct, Lloyd?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The next item on our agenda is to finalize the scorecard for the 2023 COC renewal competition. And I'll turn it back over to Lloyd to present that information.
Thank you. Let me find that scorecard. I'm trying to couple scorecards up here. Let's see. Apologize for the delay. All right, you members of the committee may recall that we approved the 2023 COC project evaluation tool for renewal permanent housing projects back in December and completed an evaluation with that revised scorecard. In the spring of this year, we were concerned as a committee and as the department that our three rapid rehousing projects scored at the bottom of the
Excuse
list.
me, Lloyd,
Yes,
could you increase your view a little bit for me?
okay.
Those of us who are visually challenged. Thank you.
That better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. So again, by way of introduction, so we were concerned that except for the Home Again project, which really has not been effectively using the HMIS, and unfortunately, we do know that the Home Again is wrapping up its COC funded project as it was reallocated in the 2022 competition. That project will be closed by the end of September, I believe, of this year. And so, but the rapid rehousing projects, the three of them, Fresh Start at Urban Ministries and the two rapid rehousing projects at Housing for New Hope, both scored at the bottom of the tool. So in consultation with Jonathan as the chair of the committee, we agreed to consider some revisions to the tool prior to this year's COC competition, so that hopefully the tool might perhaps more effectively allow the rapid rehousing projects to score comparatively well in comparison to the permanent supportive housing projects. So there's three revisions that we are proposing that the committee make with the school, and I'm highlighting them here. Under non-cash benefit, we are have reduced the target level to 60% of adult leavers having a non-cash benefit at project entrance, or excuse me, at project exit. Prior to that, the standard for rapid rehousing projects was the same as that for permanent supportive housing projects of 75%. And I would say too that to make these revisions, we did look at where our rapid rehousing projects scored significantly lower than the permanent supportive housing projects on the tool that we had in the spring evaluation. The second area we are looking at and suggesting a revision would be question 10B, zero income at entry. We've also relaxed the standard for rapid rehousing projects and made it 25% of adult participants would have zero income at entry. Previously, it had been the same again as permanent supportive housing projects at 50% of adult participants having zero income at entry. And then the third area we're suggesting a revision would be under reasonable permanent housing exit costs. The prior standard had been, and I've highlighted here in the second last column, prior standard had been that projects would lose 1 point of the total of 25 points available. They lose 1 point for every percentage point above 105% of the overall average. So we're suggesting that this be reduced, that projects would lose a half a point for every additional percentage point. So for example, if the project is, if their cost is 120% above the average, they would lose eight points, since we're rounding to the nearest integer. And that's explained in the example. So those are the three questions on the tool that we are suggesting be revised for the tiering and ranking process in this second evaluation of our permanent housing projects in the renewal projects in this year's competition. Other than that, the tool would remain the same as it was for the first evaluation of 2023. Madam Chair, back to you.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's my mouse or my computer, but okay, thank you, Lloyd, for that overview. And just a question for clarification, going back to the exit, I think it was the last edit or change that we made on the scorecard. If you could go back to that one.
Reasonable project cost?
Yes.
Housing exit cost,
Okay, and so in the example, this is the project's cost per, is it permanent housing exit is $6,667 per household?
Right, yeah.
But the average is about 11,328, so they should be at or below the average.
Well, they should be, according to the standard, they can get full credit if they are within 105% of the average.
Okay.
And a lot of the challenge with rapid rehousing projects is that if projects are not serving many people or not exiting particularly many people, then their cost per exit increases significantly, right?
Yes.
So I think I didn't update the example. The average cost when we looked at all three COC funded projects, the current average was 11,328. So the example of 5,595 is perhaps a bit dated, at least relative to our current average. So we know that the Fresh Start project, which targets services to rapid rehousing services to chronically homeless adults who have disabilities, but who potentially could become self-sufficient with rapid rehousing support, has been especially challenged with reasonable permanent housing exit costs, because they generally cost them a bit more to serve that target population than other rapid rehousing projects that would serve homeless people without disabilities, for example.
Okay.
But one of the rapid rehousing projects at Housing for New Hope also struggled in this area in the spring competition. In the spring evaluation, it was not a competition; it was just an evaluation.
Okay. All right.
Part of the reason we're proposing these revisions now is that the second evaluation does have more significant implications for projects, in that it affects their tiering in the competition, and as a result of that tiering, one or the other projects may be at risk of losing some funding if a portion of the grant ends up in the tier 2 section of the ranking process.
Okay. That's the implication. And so that's why we had we changed slightly the scoring range in points possible for this particular measure.
That's what we're proposing we do, right?
Okay.
It's up to the committee as to whether it wants to do that or wants to continue with the scorecard that was approved in December.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Are there any questions, or this is open for discussion to review any of the proposed changes for the rubrics that we kind of move forward with? Lloyd is open to comments and discussion regarding this before we finalize it. And those are the areas that were highlighted, Lloyd, were the areas in which we had questions about and were discussing prior to this meeting, correct?
I don't know if the committee specifically had questions or comments about it. We, I think,
Seems like we discussed it before this meeting.
we discussed the challenges of the scorecard in looking at the evaluation results in the spring, and again, Jonathan and we discussed it and decided that rather than waiting for a revision in the 2024, we would propose these revisions at this time to see if the rapid rehousing project score in a more equitable fashion in comparison to the permanent supportive housing projects. I mean, I think, you know, the options really are, in my mind, would be to leave the scorecard as it was, that was approved in December, or to approve all 3 of these changes, or to approve only 1 or 2 of the changes that are being proposed. I think those are
the options.
those are the options. So really, there's 4 options that I would recognize. One being use the existing scorecard that was approved, accept 1 of the changes proposed, accept 2 of the changes proposed, or accept all 3 of the changes proposed. We're giving maximum flexibility to the committee.
Okay, so we can, again, we're open for any comments or further discussion before we make a motion, but just to clarify, so I also have an understanding, we can accept the existing scorecard as it is, or we can accept the proposed changes to 1, number 2, number 3, or all the proposed changes that are cited and are highlighted in the rubrics, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, having heard from any of the members around a discussion or any questions for Lloyd regarding what's been presented, we're open at this point for a motion, and a motion based on the options that I've mentioned.
Hi, it's Alicia from the VA. I want to make a motion to vote on the option that we're going to accept all the changes that were recommended.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Can we get a second motion for all changes that have been proposed?
I second all changes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shanta. So we have accepted all the proposed changes to the 2023 renewal evaluation tool. And so at this point, can we also in the chat box vote to support the motions that have been presented? Okay, looks as if everyone has voted, that need to vote. And so we have finalized the scorecard for the 2023 COC renewal competition. That will be noted in our minutes. The next item on our agenda is to finalize the scorecard for the new project application for the 2023 COC competition, and Lloyd will also present this information.
Actually, Madam Chair, I think I want to ask that we table that discussion. I
Okay,
have done some work on it, but I really am proposing that we table that until HUD releases the 2023 NOFO,
okay,
just to make sure that we are aligning it with the NOFO.
that's understandable.
So
Okay.
and the other point is that I don't believe, and I'm willing to stand corrected, I'm not, I don't believe the HSAC has approved yet the recommendation for a priority for the 2023 homeless grants competition. Is that correct?
I think it is.
Yes, we did not have a quorum last
Okay.
meeting, so we could not make a vote.
Okay, so I think that's the other issue. So I think we will have time to get this scorecard approved once HUD releases the NOFO and the HSAC approves a priority population for new project funding. We HUD said back in I think April or March that they were expecting or hoping to release the 2023 NOFO in May or June. At this point, we've not yet received the grants inventory worksheet from HUD, which tells us essentially which projects are eligible for renewal in the 2023 competition. So it looks increasingly doubtful that HUD would be releasing the 2023 NOFO prior to the end of June. So we'll continue to monitor communications from HUD and get that. believe it is on the calendar, on the schedule for the HSAC's agenda to approve a priority population at its June 28th meeting, and we will follow up with the committee after that.
Okay, all right, so it may be the July meeting then when we would reconvene to discuss this.
Yes.
After the, okay, all right, great. So going on to the next agenda item, appointment of scoring committees for the state ESG, COC, and City of Durham RFP competitions. I think we met and talked about this prior to, but I don't know if we have enough committee commitments for all three of the scoring committees. So Lord, if you can kind of update us on that.
Right, so it's promising as usual to be a busy summer season in terms of these competitions. The COC competition has two parts. I mean, one is the scoring of the renewal permanent housing projects, which we just approved revisions to the scoring tool. And then new projects also need to be evaluated. Typically, we are anticipating a domestic violence bonus again of probably in the neighborhood of $200,000, as well as a permanent, well, a COC bonus, which HUD in 2022 opened up to any eligible COC activity, so allowing COCs to apply for using the COC bonus for homeless management information or rapid rehousing or street outreach or permanent supportive housing. The COC bonus we anticipate is again going to be in the neighborhood of $100,000. So that's the largest funding source that we have to manage and evaluate applications for. So we need a scoring committee for that. For the state ESG, which the committee just approved as well this morning, approved the scorecard. We need a committee of at least 3, and all of these committees should have at least 3 members on them. And as we've done for a number of years, the department works to score the objective performance reports, either using the information in an annual performance report or in the ESG consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, or the ESG paper. Both of those reports typically come from the Homeless Management Information System, or the HMIS. The third committee that we need is an evaluation committee for the city's request for proposals that will close tomorrow. That is the most immediate evaluation committee that we need to begin working with. The city, our department has released an RFP through a new secure software called neighborlysoftware.com. The evaluation committee would be given access to view applications in that software and would be trained to how to use Neighborly to access the applications. Currently, we do have as many as 11 incomplete applications in the software. We're not confident that all of them will be actually submitting proposals, I should say, not applications, but proposals in the software, but chances are good that we will have probably, well, it's hard to estimate, but half a dozen or more proposals in that to evaluate. We have a bit more flexibility in terms of the timeline for evaluating those proposals. The goal is for us to complete the evaluation and proposals by around July 15th and get approvals can't recall the process right now because these competitions run together sometimes in my
Yeah.
feeble mind, forgive me. But in any case, we have more flexibility because the grant periods that the city is working toward would be to have contracts in place for projects to expend these funds in calendar years 2024, 2025, and 2026. So this RFP process is for a 3-year period. There are 3 funding sources being made available. Community development block grant funds of $300,000 annually. Dedicated housing funds, which are essentially
Bond funds.
not bond funds, but part of the general operating funds that the
Okay.
city council has allocated specifically for affordable housing uses, and the department is using $200,000 of that for rapid rehousing. And then the emergency solutions grant entitlement funds that are essentially the same kind of fund as the state ESG, but they come directly to the city through our department, and that amount is also, I think, about $165,000, so somewhat comparable amount to the amount we get from the state. So annually we'll have over about $670,000 to distribute through this RFP process. But we hope to make decisions at least by the end of August as to which projects would be funded, and then move into the contracting phase to work with the subrecipients to get contracts through the city council and get everything in place by the end of the year. The department did determine that since these are city funds, we do not formally need the committee's approval of the scorecard that we'll be using. We have approved the scorecard within the department, and if there's interest, I can share that scorecard with you. It's really comparable to the scorecards that we are using. And by congratulating the Performance Management Committee, I would say that on the 2022 COC competition, HUD scoring of our project capacity review and ranking in our local competition scored at the 95% level. We received 28.5 of 30 possible points. So HUD is generally pleased with how we are, scoring and ranking and evaluating our projects, and hopefully that will be true for this competition as well.
Okay, right. Okay.
I'm not talking too much.
No. So there are 3 sources to the $670,000 that you're doing for the public service funded projects. Is this a new? I know ESG is not a new initiative. I know public service is an eligible cost or expense under CDBG, community development block grant funded projects. But is this like a new initiative where you're kind of combining these different funding sources to address affordable housing and some community development initiatives for low and moderate income families?
We have been using some CDBG funds to support the homeless housing system, especially emergency shelters, for probably a half dozen years or so. CDBG, well, it's probably been longer than that. At one time, we were using CDBG funds to pay for meals, like at Urban Ministries and their community cafe, to pay for meals for people coming to their meals program. In more recent years, those CDBG funds have been used to support case management in our
Okay.
emergency shelter projects. This year, we are opening it up to use the CDBG funds to support case management activities in rapid rehousing or in our permanent supportive housing projects. Some of our thinking on that is that we have heard from our permanent supportive housing projects that the HUD grants through the COC have had a large emphasis on supporting the housing portion of the permanent supportive housing project, but not necessarily the supportive services. So we're anticipating that there will be some competition for the use of these funds between emergency shelter projects as well as rapid rehousing and or permanent supportive housing projects for the CDBG funds, as well as for the ESG and the dedicated housing funds of the city will be used only for rapid rehousing activities.
Okay, that's the difference from
Right.
versus the state funded ESG versus the funds that are coming, that were
Correct.
allocated to the city to be distributed. Okay.
Correct. And the other point to make is that we've moved to a 3-year cycle for the RFP process rather than doing
Annual.
an annual or even a biannual.
Okay.
The
That's
year
great.
seems
So
awful.
if an agency or a provider, housing provider, organization is provided funding, are they guaranteed funding for the those three within that 3-year cycle?
Ordinarily, yes, the city does have language in our contracts that would allow the city to stop funding if performance is so poor that the city says this is not a good use of our public dollars, after 1 year. But ordinarily it is for a 3-year period, with the caveat that the city can.
Thank you, Alicia. Alicia just mentioned in the chat that she has to go. Thank you for attending, Alicia. Have a good day. Okay. Thank you, Laura, for that overview. At this time, are we in a position where we need to ask whether or not, we have enough members? You said you need at least 3 members for each of the different scoring committees. I know in last meeting before, I think the April, may have been the March meeting, there were some commitment for the ESG. As far as the COC and the City of Durham RFP competitions, at this point, do you want to ask whether or not anyone on the committee is willing to serve on those scoring committees?
Yes, we realize a number of the committee members do have conflicts of interest and would not be able to serve. But those who do not, we hope would be able to serve on at least 1, 2, or 3. I believe Jonathan, the committee chair, has indicated he's willing to serve on all 3. So that will help. But we need, again, and if we don't get enough members from the committee itself, we can also seek to solicit other HSAC members or other members of the Durham COC as a whole to serve on a committee.
Okay. Do you have a count of how many you have so far? Because it seems like we did ask, and I know I volunteer for, I think, ESG.
I think we should renew that because I personally am not aware of any commitments to serve at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll open it back up. Do we have any volunteers to serve on, and you will send out more information about the Durham RFP competition as you all wrap that up, because I know you've done some an overview and some technical assistance to kind of promote and market and help educate agencies about the qualifications and criteria for the program. And you said the deadline is July 15th. So the ESG, I'm trying to get a timeline. The ESG from the state would be first, then the COC for COC fund renewal projects, and then the RFP competition. Would that be along the timeline we're looking at?
Actually, I think the timeline would be that the city RP evaluation will start first. Again, the deadline for submission of proposals is tomorrow. So that potentially would be starting next week. State ESG would start after July 11th. The continuum of care competition will not be starting until sometime after HUD releases the NOFO, and we develop a timeline then based on the NOFO's deadlines as to how quickly we need to complete that competition. But city RFP and state ESG, you know, if we can get the RFP competition completed, get the evaluation completed by July 11th, the state ESG competition won't start until after July 11th, because that's the deadline for submission of the local application.
Okay. So it's the city RFP, then the state ESG, then the COC, depending upon the release of the NOVA from HUD.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And you need 3 persons from our committee to serve on one of those scoring committees.
Correct.
Okay. And you said Jonathan has committed to serving on all 3. So we need at least 2 2 people on each of those others to kind of round it out. Okay. So we're opening it up to the committee to volunteer to serve on any of those scoring committees.
Tracy, do you know, have you scheduled when those meetings will occur?
We have not scheduled any meetings as yet. Really will depend on who's on the committee and what you know, individual schedules and calendars are.
Okay, I just have a lot of them.
Yeah, we schedule those meetings in consultation with the committee members.
Okay, great.
Renee, do you have an interest in serving on one of the scoring committees?
Yes, I'd be willing to. I just know I have a few standing meetings that I
The city's
can't
usually
miss.
good about working around everyone's schedule for
Okay.
not only getting the information out, but also to meet as a group to discuss the applications.
Okay, I'd be willing to serve on.
Which one would you like to serve on?
I guess the first one,
Okay.
The city's RFP?
the
For public
city's RFP, yes.
Okay,
Great.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Tracy, normally I volunteer to participate, but I'm actually retiring at the end of this month.
Oh, wow, congratulations. Renee.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Didn't seem
Um,
like you would be old enough to get to that point, but congratulations.
Well, it's actually, I'm medically retiring. So
Okay.
I won't be able to do that. I won't be able to assist this year. So I'm sorry. I am working on a replacement
Okay.
for my HSAC seat and my subcommittees. So hopefully I can make that announcement to the group soon.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say I'm not speaking up because I don't want to. I'm just speaking up because I won't be here.
I understand. Thank you for sharing that with us. And
Sure.
again, congratulations on retiring.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the RFP for the city, we've got Janine and Jonathan. I'll serve on the RFP for the Durham RFP Public Service one, and I'll also serve on the ESG. There is a conflict of interest for the COC one for me.
Okay. Very good. So I've got 3 for the city RFP, Jonathan, Renee, and Tracy. Anyone else for state ESG or COC? I know Shantae has a conflict of interest probably for all 3. So you're off the hook on that, Shantae.
I know.
Just get to help prepare the applications for proposals.
Okay, so you would need 1 more for the ESG and 2 more for the COC. So you could possibly we could possibly ask whether or not someone else from the HSAC or one of the other subcommittees that's connected to the HSAC would be willing to serve on that committee as well. So
Correct.
as long as there's not a conflict of interest with the applications. Okay.
Tracy, I don't have a conflict of interest with either of the other two. So if needed, I will try to serve on those as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
So you would be willing to serve on the scoring committee for the COC and the ESG as well?
Yes.
Okay, well, great. Thank you. We appreciate that. So now we do have 3 for RFP, ESG, and we just need 1 more for the COC scoring committee. Lloyd, that's the only
Correct.
one we're missing.
Yep. In the past, we've tried to get, I think Rita McDaniel has sometimes served on the COC's scoring committee or from the other committees. So, but we'll reach out and work to identify additional committee members, certainly for the COC.
Okay,
potentially,
great.
very
All
good.
right. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. And thank you, Janine, for letting us know about your
Yep.
next chapter. And so if any of you after this meeting, look at your schedule and think about whether or not you have some capacity to serve, just reach out to Lloyd or Jonathan to just let them know. Okay. We're going to move on, given the sake of time, to the last agenda item. Well, not the last agenda item, but the update on the semi-annual reporting of data from HSACs, the approved performance measures from the Smart Sheet. And I think it's Melissa's going to present that information.
Hello. Yes, so we did send out a notice to our projects, letting them know that we needed them to submit their data for the project performance reporting period ending March 31st of 2023. So we do have a lot of projects who did submit their data, so I appreciate those who have already submitted. So Project Access has already submitted. We got some data from Urban Ministries as well. So there were several projects that have already started submitting their data, Housing for New Hope as well. However, we did not receive data from all of our projects. There are a significant number of projects who did not submit project performance data. So I will have to work with those organizations to try to get their data submitted. And then I do have one provider who did let me know that they were just having difficulty understanding the process. So I am actively working with them. So I don't want to penalize that group in particular because they have been reaching out for assistance. That being said, because the data is not complete, I don't have an actual report to present at this time. And we gave them until the end of May to submit their data, so it's very recent. So I'm going to spend the month of June. I know that we won't be meeting again for some time, so I'll spend this month working with our providers to try to get project performance data submitted, and then hopefully we'll be able to present to this committee in August.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that update, Melissa. And hopefully with the technical assistance and information you're providing, they can provide you with that requested documentation and performance metrics. So, all right. Let's see. Multitasking. Okay. All right. So that takes us to the end of our agenda for this meeting. Before we adjourn or get a motion to adjourn, are there any updates or any announcements any of the committee members would like to share before we ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, all right. Having seen any, I would request that I'd like to request someone to make a motion for our adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Renee. If I can get a second. I know we're giving you back 15 minutes. I know someone would like to make
I'll
a
give you a second.
Thank you, Ms. Addison. We appreciate that. Okay, we are officially adjourned. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation. Lord, do you have one final thing you need to mention?
No, I was just waving goodbye to everybody. Thanks so much, Tracy, for chairing us. Best of luck and good health to Janine as she moves
Yes.
into the next chapter of her life.
Yes.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Best
the weekend.
regards, Ms. Janine. Take care. You all have a good afternoon. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.